What is up, guys? Coach Tim here with Fit Couple Coaching, and today we're going to be going over 5 ways that you can ditch the dad bod by summer. So let's be honest, it's April, and if you're the type of person that waits until the last minute to get lean for summer, this video is for you. In this video, we're going to go over 5 steps that we personally use with all of our coaching clients to make sure that they are not only shredded by summertime, but they do it in a sustainable way that doesn't have them burn out. So stay tuned. We're going to go over everything to make this super simple for you. All right, so step number 1, and this one is very important. I put it as number 1 for a reason. This first step that you need to undergo is know where you're starting, right? You can't run a race if you don't know where the starting line is. So in order to get shredded and get lean in a timely manner, we have to know exactly where we're starting. And what does that mean? We need to address or assess what our base caloric needs are to maintain. So maintenance calories, simply defined, how much food do I need to consume or calories do I need to consume in order to keep my body weight stable, right? I'm not gaining, I'm not losing. That's maintaining. The cheater way, there's many ways to go about how to calculate this, but the cheater way of going about this is simply take your body weight and multiply it by either 14, 15, or 16. And there is a range there, and I know that's nuanced, and I want to go into that. So why is there a range? People that are inherently sedentary, meaning they have a sedentary job, they're at a desk, they're not getting a lot of steps in, they infrequently work out or never work out, those people are probably going to calculate their maintenance calories based off of 14 times body weight. On the other side, let's say you work a construction job, or you're a nurse, or you're a firefighter, somebody who's on their feet all the time, and you work out all the time, more than likely you are going to need to multiply your body weight by 16 to adjust for the activity level that you have. So that is going to give us a starting point of where our calories should be. Now, in the real world, let's say you're under eating drastically, which is what we see commonly, especially in the female demographic, but it's also very common in men. You go all day without eating food, and you're like, oh crap, then you eat a big dinner at night to try to compensate, or because you're hungry. More than likely, your metabolism is not there. So we want to know where our maintenance calories should be, but we also need to know what we're consuming in real time. So a little exercise before you start the diet is track your food intake for 3 to 5 days. Using an app like MyFitnessPal or Lose It or Chronometer, there's plenty of free apps out there. Tracking your intake, and then get a good average of where you are in those 3 to 5 days. So let's say you're averaging 2,200 calories, you're checking your weight is not changing. We can safely assume that that's your maintenance calories. Okay, so now we know how to stay the same. Great, what information, Tim? Not like we didn't know that already. What do we do with that information? Okay, so in order to lose body fat, we need to make sure that we are in a calorie deficit. This is the law of thermodynamics, meaning calories or energy cannot be created nor destroyed, so we need to consume less fuel than we are burning in order to reduce in size. So in order to create that calorie deficit, we have 2 options. The first option is reduce food intake, and this is the preferred option because it's the easiest to calculate and easiest to track. So let's say you're taking that same exact example of 2,200 calories, you would simply reduce 500 from that, right? It's a pretty steep deficit, I understand, but we're trying to get lean by summer, right? So reducing that calorie down to 1750, 1720, whatever that 500 difference is, you're gonna take that is now your deficit. If we extrapolate that over the week, that is 500 times 7, that's 3,500 calories, which equals about a pound of fat loss per week, which we're gonna get into what the appropriate rate of loss is later. But that's our first step, is we need to know calories, and we also need to know what we need to bring them down to in order to give our body a reason to lose body fat. So that's number 1. The second point within knowing where you're starting is what macros do I have to follow? So what is a macro real fast? I think a lot of times as fitness professionals, we just assume everybody knows what macros are. But as a quick reminder, or maybe the first time, macronutrients are broken into 3 categories. We have proteins, carbs, and fats. So those are just the way that we identify the types of foods and the structures in which they do different things in our body. So what macros should I follow to make up those calories? Macros equal calories, right? So it's not calories in, calories out, it's macros equal calories that are calories in, calories out. I digress. So the first and most important thing is always gonna be calorie intake. That's gonna supersede all the importance of the macros. The second most important thing, I call this the queen in the equation, is gonna be your protein intake. As just a general rule of thumb, we want to make sure we're getting about a gram of protein per body pound. There is some nuance there, but a gram of protein is pretty dang standard. And the reason we want high protein is multiple fold, but the major reason here is we want to make sure we're losing body fat and not lean body mass, not muscle, right? Muscle is our metabolically active tissue. It is our metabolic furnace. The more muscle we lose, we get slower metabolically. We have a lot more trouble losing body fat. So you want to do yourself a favor, make sure to get at least a gram of protein per body pound. Second point of protein, of why we want to consume protein, is it's a very satiating macronutrient, meaning you eat a bunch of protein, you are going to be full, you're going to be satisfied, your likelihood of over consuming the carbohydrates and fat goes down drastically. Trust me, if you try to follow a 2,000 calorie a day diet on nothing but carbohydrates and fat, you're going to have trouble sticking to that plan. But if we're getting a good gram of protein per body pound, you're going to find it much easier to sustain that same calorie deficit. And then there is a third or a tertiary benefit to consuming that much protein, is protein has a very high, what's called a TEF, or a thermic effect of feeding, meaning it costs our body energy to break down protein. It's a very complex molecule. A lot of enzymatic processes happen within our body to break down, digest, and assimilate those nutrients. And on average, every gram of protein, about 30% of that is going to be used as energy to break down the protein. So effectively, we're giving ourselves a 3-calorie cut right there. 100 grams of protein, you're really probably only getting 70% of those calories from that protein because of the cost of the thermic effect of feeding. So that's the first macronutrient you want to worry about. The second two, it really doesn't freaking matter. And I know there's a lot of keto zealots. I know there's a lot of different camps when it comes to this, but when it comes to losing body fat, changing your body composition, if the calories are controlled, if the protein is controlled, meaning we're eating adequate protein, we're in a calorie deficit, the other two macronutrients, what I always tell people is, number one, what do you enjoy? What is your preference? What is something that you can stick to? If you love the keto or the carnivore style of eating where you're just doing protein and veg, by all means, do you boo-boo. That's more than adequate. But if you love yourself some carbs, like some rice or some sourdough bread or some pasta here and there, you can have those. Those are absolutely fine to have on a fat loss diet. You just want to make sure that you stay within your calorie budget. So now that that's out of the way, how do we decide what we do? Well, really, we start with preference first, right? What do you prefer? Do you like carbs? Do you like fat? You generally want a mix of both, right? But in all accounts, you want to try to fit the diet to your lifestyle. If you're an incredibly active individual, well, we're probably going to need a few more carbohydrates. If you're very sedentary, you probably don't need as many carbohydrates. The way I like to think about carbs and fat is they're between a Corvette and a Prius, right? You got carbohydrates more like a Corvette. They're very much for performance. They're very much high horsepower. They might not last a long time for energy, but they sure as hell provide a lot of power. On the flip side, if you're sedentary and you don't do a lot of active stuff, think about fats as kind of like your Prius. They take a long time to digest. They give you a lot of sustainable energy, but they're not really going to provide that boom, that performance bump when it comes to training with weights or doing any high output type of stuff. So that's how I would go about starting off with step number one of knowing where you're starting, assessing calories, setting a deficit, setting your macronutrients, which will set you up for phase or step two. All right, in step two, this one is just as important, maybe a little bit less important, but still very freaking important, and that is having a structured plan to how you're going to approach this cut. A lot of times people just wing it. They wing it, they don't know what they're doing, so they throw all of their cards on the table. They are way too aggressive off the front. And what ends up happening with that is they burn out because it's an unsustainable plan, right? We have to know that fat loss takes time. It is something that's not going to happen overnight. So you don't get any brownie points or any hardcore points for doing double day cardio and doing zero carbs and taking all the fat burners, because that's what your favorite influencer wants you to do. Now, what does a structured plan look like? This needs to be specific to your lifestyle. What can you commit to? Meaning, we need to get in all of our food for the day, right? If we have we have our calories, we have our macros set, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis for you? We're probably gonna need to eat between 3 to 5 times a day to maximize our protein feedings for the day, which is supported by research that we absolutely need a protein serving every 3 to 5 hours. and that's going to maximize muscle protein synthesis, making sure that we are anabolic, we are not catabolizing or breaking down muscle tissue. So how many meals are you going to eat per day? Are you going to eat 3? Are you going to eat 4? Or are you going to eat 5? Right? And this could be a mix of meals and snacks. So a lot of people we work with, they will do your square breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they might have 2 planned snacks for the day. But the point is they're planned. We are not children. We don't just snack because we are bored or because we eat or we want to eat. We want to plan what we're going to consume. So have a game plan of what you're going to consume. When you have a game plan of, okay, these are going to be my meal structures for the day. I'm going to have X amount of whatever for breakfast. I'm going to have X amount of whatever for lunch. Same for dinner. These are going to be my snacks or my protein shakes. Boom. Now we have an idea of where we can go to the grocery store and pick up those exact items, meaning we're not getting anything else, right? I understand a lot of us have kids and a lot of us have spouses, but what's healthy for you is also healthy for them. And the point of this is for you to get shredded for summer. And our next point of getting support, we're going to cover all this stuff. But the point of this part is for you to have a structured plan. That's the food part. Second part is we want to make sure we're working out, right? We want to make sure that we are maximizing the stimulus to our body because, again, we don't want to lose weight. We want to lose body fat. And there's 2 reasons our body will keep around muscle. Number 1 is we're eating adequate protein, right? That is going to be the chemical signaling from what we consume. The second is the impetus for holding muscle, which is strength training. Our body very much operates under I don't want to call it a rule or a law, but it definitely is a corollary. If we don't use it, we lose it, right? So if we are not getting adequate stimulus, meaning our body needs this freaking muscle around, the likelihood of holding onto it while we're dieting down is very low. And we see that a lot, especially in the GLP-1 crowd, those that do not exercise, those that do not do resistance training, but they're just cutting calories, they will lose a substantial amount of weight, true, but they lose at least 50% of that comes from lean body mass, aka muscle, and then also bone density, which is something that we can talk about with longevity. However, that's not the point of this video. The point is we need to make sure we get our butts to the gym. Now, do we have to go to the gym 6 days a week, 2 hours a day? Abso-freaking-lutely not. We need to make sure we're getting at least 2 to 3 good sessions that are strategic, that they are efficient, and they are doing the job of promoting at least preservation of muscle, if not growth of muscle. And what does that look like? We are going to be prioritizing our strength training with the goal of getting stronger each time we go to the gym. So let's say you do a traditional push-pull legs split. That's 3 days a week. You can accomplish each one of those workouts in anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes max if you are not BSing at the gym and using your gym time as a social hour or TikTok hour. Get in there, do your big compound movements first. So if it's push day, we are gonna be bench pressing or dumbbell pressing. We're gonna be, doing a lot of heavy compound movements, using the body the way that it was intended to be used, which is multi-joint movements, really creating a lot of stimulus for growth and change. So that is the core principle, is using our big movements, our pressing, our heavy compound movements like shoulder presses, bench presses, etc., skull crushers, things like that. And then we also want to make sure that we're progressing that over time. So that's number 1. 2, like let's say it's your pull day, same idea. We might deadlift, we might do some bent over rows, we might do some pull downs, we might do some curls for the girls. We might do that, but the idea is we need to be progressive in our approach, meaning we are aiming to get more reps or more weight or a combination of the 2 every single time we hit that muscle group. And yes, in the beginning, you most likely will be sore. That's okay. Make sure to start slow and then slowly build up if it is your first time coming back to the gym in a while. So that is the training component. The third component is, when are we going to do the other stuff, right? The meal prep, the grocery store shopping, like the stuff that makes the engine run, right? Like a lot of times we think about the workout and the diet, but what about going to the grocery store? What about making our meals? What about making those meals freaking taste good, right? Those are all super important habits that we need to get into. And my best advice for this is schedule that as if it was a DMV appointment. You are not going to miss your appointment with the DMV because it takes freaking months to get back in. So on your calendar, block out a time. This is grocery shopping time. You also block out a time for meal prep. I like to do them back to back. Grocery store, right home, right to meal prep. That is the simplest way. Boom, get that out of the way. Bulk prep all of your chicken. Bulk prep all of your beef. Bulk prep your potatoes, whatever. Get it all done so that way you can be a human being during the week and be effective and efficient with your time. Then the last thing that I really want to impress upon you is this. We also need to schedule our sleep. If we are not sleeping, if we are not getting adequate sleep in duration as well as quality, we are absolutely shortchanging our ability to burn body fat. I swear that sleep is the most underrated fat loss drug that we have. More potent than GLP-1s, more potent than clenbuterol, more potent than even stuff that hasn't been invented yet. It's a game changer. So if you're not sleeping, make that a freaking priority. And how do you do that? You set a bedtime and a wake time, and you be consistent with that every single day. For me, 9:30 at night, that's my bedtime. That means lights are off, my eyes are closed. And then my wake time, 6 a.m. So I'm giving myself a fighting chance to get those 8 hours of sleep. Even if I take a minute to fall asleep at night, I am making sure that I get that time in bed to be able to get that restful sleep. And I can tell you, when I'm doing that properly, fat loss comes infinitely easier than when I'm trying to burn the candle at both ends. So get a structured plan. Now we'll move on to the next step. All right, and step number 3, and this is something that we absolutely have to pay attention to, and that is making sure you're giving yourself plenty of time to get lean. If your goal is to be, let's say, 6% body fat by June 1st, that means you have less than 6 weeks, or less than 2 months. My bad. Math is my strong point, apparently. You have less than 2 months to get there. Yes, that might be a great goal if you're 8% body fat, but if you're 20% body fat and you think you're gonna be able to get to 6% body fat in that amount of time, you are setting yourself up for not only failure, but honestly, adrenal fatigue and burnout, and you might not even ever want to diet and get lean ever again. So let's talk about what is an appropriate rate of loss. I think this is very important to cover, especially in the environment of a lot of big promises when it comes to dieting. Healthy weight loss, when we're talking about preserving muscle mass and just losing body fat alone, or at least a vast majority of our weight loss coming from body fat, is around that 0.5 to 1% of total body weight per week. So for someone like me, that is anywhere from about 2 to 2.5 pounds per week max, right? I weigh about 235. So right in that middle 1% would be 2.3. So anywhere from 1.75 to 2.5. That's about the range on average I want to lose per week. If I push that faster, meaning I'm losing 4 to 5 pounds a week, because I see it on the Biggest Loser and that's how fast they lose weight, I'm setting myself up to lose a ton of muscle. I'm really trying hard not to cuss here. I'm setting myself up to lose a ton of muscle. The reason they lose 4 to 5 pounds a week is because they start at 400 to 500 pounds. That is also about 1% of their body weight. So remember that. You are not them, they are not you. Your rate of loss needs to be appropriate to you. So if we just reverse engineer that, let's say you're 220 pounds and you know that your goal weight is, I'm gonna use an extreme example here. Say your goal weight is 180. That's a 40-pound weight loss. Now, how many weeks, if we're just losing 1% of our body weight, we're gonna go to the top end of that threshold. How long would it take us to get from 220 to 180? Well, it's 40 pounds. Let's say 1% is right around 2 pounds. Well, we can do that math. That's about 20 weeks. That's a 20-week long diet to appropriately get down to that goal target weight. And that's if everything goes perfectly. And I don't know about you, but Murphy's Law applies really harshly to my life. What can go wrong will go wrong. So I always like to build in buffer weeks in there. So if my goal is to get, I'm a bodybuilder, so if my goal is to get stage lean, sub 4% body fat by a certain date, and let's say I prep for 16 weeks, I'm gonna build in at least 2 to 4 buffer weeks into there. So I'm gonna start my diet 20 weeks before I need to be that body composition. And the reason for that is because let's say you get sick. Let's say you have a really terrible week at work and you were not able to get those 3 sessions in. It happens. Or you have a week where you're just like really drained because you have been dieting really hard and you need a diet break. You need a week where you bring calories back up to maintenance to offset some food fatigue, offset some diet fatigue, or even some training fatigue, to offset cravings, to reestablish metabolic rate. Those are all very helpful strategies when we run into that situation. But if we don't have time, we aren't going to be able to do that. So making sure that we buffer out that time is going to guard your ability to make sure that you get to your end goal by the time that you want to get there. Now, this also requires a little bit of planning, right? So if you know you have 40 pounds to lose, maybe don't put your end date at June. maybe we need to start that diet a little bit farther back or push our end date out a couple more months to make sure we can actually get there on time. So take that one to the bank. All right, step number 4. And this one could be foundational to any part of your life, but it definitely rings true when it comes to dieting. Your environment dictates your success. I had a foreman once when I used to work construction, and he would always tell me, it's hard to soar with the eagles when you're surrounded by buzzards. And nothing more can ring true when it comes to dieting. How many times have you ever been dieting or on a diet and everybody around you wants to eat Krispy Kreme donuts, which I think they're bankrupt now, but like either way, donuts, they want to do pizza. They have no freaking concern for your diet or your fat loss goals. They could care less. Being around those people all the time is very, very challenging. However, some of those people live with us. Sometimes they're your spouse. Sometimes they're your closest coworkers, your best friends. So how do we go about curating that environment to make sure that we don't have any undue temptation coming our way? And also, we don't have any noise. We don't have any people that are detracting from us, telling us, oh, like, why do you have to do that? Why do you have to eat this? Well, here's how you solve that problem. Number 1, it starts with communication between you and your spouse. That is going to be your home base. If you do not have a strong home base, good luck following anything consistently for any amount of time. You live with them, you love them, they love you. So you want to start the conversation with them. You want to start this conversation by first explaining to them what your goals are. Hey babe, I am going on a fat loss diet. I want to get really lean by summer. This is my goal. This is what I'm doing. You also want to explain why you're doing it. I want to do it because, well, I really don't like how far I've let myself go. I would really like to, spice things up in the bedroom a little bit. I would really like to look in the mirror and be like, damn, that looks good. And wouldn't you like to know? Or wouldn't you like to look at me and be like, bam, that is my arm candy. I want some of that, right? Explain your why. It could be maybe a little deeper than that. However, they need to know what we're doing or why we're doing what we're doing and what our actual end goal is. And then the third thing is you need to have a little accountability around that, right? Whether it's a coach, whether it's a workout partner, whether it's a close friend, make sure that they are in on your goal as well and they can call you out on your BS. So it can't be somebody that is a yes man or a yes woman. You need to have someone in your corner that's like, hey bro, I thought you were trying to get lean before summer. Why do I see a beer in your hand right now? You need that person in your life. They are your best friend in these moments. So having, number 1, your spouse, your home-based support strong. Number 2, that close accountability person. Guess what? A lot of times those are the same person. And then third, we want to keep crabs away, right? The people that do not really care about your success, we want to make sure that we keep them at arm's distance. So the coworkers are like, oh, just have a piece, have a little bit of cake, have a little bit of donut. Those people are not your friends. Those people want to feel better about their own decisions because if you make bad decisions, then they don't have to examine their own situation and make better decisions. So they're going to try to pull you down to their level, and guess what? They're going to beat you with experience because they've been there longer. So for your own sanity, keep those people at an arm's distance. Doesn't mean you have to ostracize them. Doesn't mean you have to exile them from your existence, but keep them at an arm's distance. Guess what? You have the power as an adult human to say no. No one ever, at least outside of places like Guantanamo Bay and other terrible internment camps, have been held down and force fed, right? No one is making you eat anything. You can say no at any time. You can also prepare and plan anytime. Make sure you bring your food with you. So that way, when you're in an environment that maybe is temptation ridden, you have an out. Nope, I brought my food. And if you're like me, I'm a cheap bastard, so I'm gonna make sure that I eat the food that I've already prepared because I don't wanna pay for something that I don't need to pay for. So use that as an excuse. That's always worked for me. But the main point here is communication with your spouse. That is always going to be the main thing that is going to set up the foundation of your support structure. So if you have that in place and you have an accountability person in your corner, aka maybe your spouse or your best friend or your workout partner, life is going to be so much easier to stay on track. And they will actually cheer for you when you are successful. They will actually push you when you're having hard days. They're like, no man, you work so freaking hard. Don't give in. You just have X amount of weeks left. Come on, see that. Keep your eyes on the prize. Look down the line. So take that one to the bank. All right, and step number 5. This one is, I swear most people forget about this one. And it is have an extra strategy. So how many times have you went on a diet? We're like, okay, I'm doing 75 hard or strong or whatever that program is. I'm doing the whole 30. I mean, these all have defined start and finish dates. But what do we do after that finish date? So when you have your goal set for, let's just use June 1st as like a just nice, easy number. Let's say that's your goal date to hit your goal, your body fat goal. And you're at that point, bam, you smashed it. You've done everything you need to do. You've got lean, you've got sexy, you've got, your groove back. What do you do next? Now, most people will just go back to the life that they were living before the diet. That is the worst thing you can do, because guess what? You will also revert back to the same body composition and the same body weight you were before you started. Like, why wouldn't you? You were doing that before. That's what supported that body composition and that body weight. What makes you think that you won't revert right back to it? So we need to have an exit strategy. And this is where our clients get so much love and support, is on the back end of diets. Because getting people lean, let's be freaking honest, a lot of people can do it. But how do we set you up for success long term? It all comes off the back end of diets. How do we take someone that is consuming a relatively low amount of food to get an incredibly good body composition, and then get them to the place where they're eating a lot of food, arguably a ton of food, and maintaining that body composition? So they have room for the pizza, they have room for the beer, they have room for the occasional crumble cookie or donut here and there. Well, we do that through reverse dieting. And reverse dieting it was a very sexy term for a while. I believe Layne Norton was one of the first people to coin this. But effectively, it is exactly the opposite of a diet. So if you finish your diet, let's say at 1,600 calories, that's a pretty low sustainable, ability to sustain that food amount for most adult males, right? For me, I would be starving my face off. And the likelihood of me maintaining that for long term would be very low, because eventually my psychology would break and I would eat everything in the house. Now, if we end at 1,600, we can't just jump back to 3,500, or we can't just jump back to 2,500. We have to stair step our way back up. And this is where the law of 10% comes in. So you finish the diet at, let's say 1,600 is just a round number. Your first step out of the back end of the diet is to be just as strict as you were on the diet, but we're gonna slowly reintroduce calories by 10% at a time. So 1,600, we're gonna add in about 150, 160 calories, right? That's 10%. We're gonna ride that out for a week or two. Let our metabolic rate come up. Most likely we'll get a small uptick in weight, sometimes not, but a half a pound, and that most likely will be just glycogen filling your muscles back up, and then your weight will start to trend back down. That is your sign that your metabolic rate has picked up. Once that happens, add 10 more percent, and then wait another couple weeks. Do the same thing. And if we follow this process in a very simplistic, methodical fashion, we can get our calories up to an obscene level. I've done this as an N=1 experiment with myself. Finishing a cut into a bodybuilding competition prep, very, very lean, reversed out for a year and a half, meaning I just wanted to see how far I could take this damn thing. And I was able to get up to north of 8,000 calories, eating a full cheat meal every freaking night. I was disgustingly full every single day. Like, my dream of a cheat meal at that time was to miss a meal. But I wanted to do it for the sake of this experiment. And I was able to maintain within 5 pounds of my lowest body weight that I was during that competition prep. So it is done. It can be done. And I'm just N=1. I've also done this with many, many clients, all different walks, all different genders. The most extreme one was from a female standpoint. I had a woman who dieted down to 115 pounds. She was a smaller woman, and she was eating roughly 1,200 calories by the end of her diet. So pretty low, pretty dang low. But after the year of reversing back up, she had no intention of really going into another diet. She'd reached her body composition goals. We were able to get her up to eating north of 3,500 calories within that calendar year and maintain exactly the same body weight and arguably better body composition, because she was able to train harder and actually put on a little bit of muscle tissue and tighten up just even more. So having a strategy for what to do when the diet is done is absolutely paramount to your long-term success. Because if we can do that, then it makes staying freaking lean super easy. If you can eat a ton of food and stay lean, that is what we call first world dieting problems, and everybody wants those problems. So take that advice, because that one is going to change your life. And that was the 5 steps to ditch the dad bod and get yourself a rad bod before the summertime comes. Well, if you found value in this video, or if you're someone who really would like to dive deep and get a customized plan that is personalized to your specific situation, to take out the guesswork, to make sure that you get to your goal on time, to make sure that you don't have to worry about this dieting nonsense anymore in your entire freaking life, make sure to send us an email. Our description will be our email will be in the description below, and we will reach out to you. We'll make sure to hop on a call. This whole month, we're giving out free strategy sessions to everybody who reaches out. So no pressure at all. Just shoot us an email, and we'll hop on the phone and we'll set you up, man. We'll get you rocking and rolling before summer is upon us. All right, guys. Have a great day, and I will talk to you next week. We're dropping new fitness videos and lifestyle tips and diet tips, etc. Blah blah blah, every single week. So make sure to subscribe and like and share it with anybody who has a heartbeat.